So where does 2021 rank for global temperatures? That's our Techstination. I'm Fred Fishkin, and joining us from NASA is climate scientist Lesley Ott. Thank you for taking the time with us, Lesley.
Thank you so much for having us.
Well, 2021 was an eventful year when it comes to climate. NASA and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration have just released the global temperature data for the year. What does it show?
So 2021 came in basically tied with 2018 as the sixth warmest year on record. But more than those year-by-year rankings, what's really striking to scientists like me is that the past 8 years have been the 8 warmest years on record going back over 150 years. So this dramatic, period of warming that we're seeing across the planet continues, and 2021 is more evidence of that.
How did it play out with the number of disasters and extreme weather events, droughts, fires? It seemed like there were tornadoes in places at different times of year that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, and that's a really disturbing feature, right? That some of the recent tornado activity that can be related to very severe thunderstorms. That's certainly something of concern. Unfortunately, 2021 was a really eventful weather year for disasters. That continues something we've seen over the past several years, and those are manifesting in different ways in different parts of the country. So, for example, in the Western U.S., we worry a lot about water resources, drought, and the fact that very dry conditions can lead to intense fires. In the southeastern United States, we worry about tropical storms and some of the increased storm surge we can see from sea level rise. So those are some of the ways that extremes are being fueled by this excess heat in the Earth system. As you mentioned, we've also seen some really unusual events recently, like these very extreme, large, organized thunderstorms, which have spawned tornadoes. And that's again another type of concern that we're seeing. More tornadoes later into the year. These are all ways that climate change and its effects can manifest in our local communities.
And of course, that means they can have a terrible impact on so many lives.
Absolutely.
Now, the work continues to collect more and better data with new and better satellites. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, we have a couple new satellites that we're really, really excited about. One is called Landsat 9, and it's called Landsat 9 because it's the 9th in this series of satellites that goes back all the way 50 years, right? So some of the earliest Earth-observing satellites were in this series. Why that's important is because that long record of data from Landsat helps us monitor the changes in urban areas, changes in vegetation. We're making those data better all the time, but by having that continuity, we can actually track how the planet's changing from space over these long time periods. We're also working with NOAA to improve, weather satellites, so that those kinds of weather satellites can actually do more than tell us about extreme storms. They can tell us about fires. They can tell us about air pollution. They can help us really monitor and predict the effects of extremes in our daily lives. And so those are just a couple examples of the way that satellites are really helping us contextualize all these changes.
Now, based on this past year and the years before that, what can we expect for this year? I guess predicting is a little more difficult sometimes than looking back.
Right.
What can we expect?
Well, it's always hard to say exactly on these, on these lists, where exactly is it going to be the 5th year or the 1st year? But what we can tell you is we think there's a very high likelihood this is going to be another warm year, because we know that warming is driven by greenhouse gas emissions that are trapping extra heat near the surface, right? So, that statistic of 8 warmest years on record have been the past 8 years. We think that trend is likely to continue. We're going to continue to see, more warming, and we expect that to continue to fuel some of the kinds of extremes that we're seeing across the country, unfortunately.
And it seems from reports now and then that the impacts are happening faster than was earlier predicted, that things are kind of snowballing. Maybe that's a poor choice of words, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we're seeing a lot of effects. We're seeing these very dramatic, high impact events, and I think one, we do know the frequency of many of those events is increasing. So that's absolutely borne out by the data. You can see in the records that there's an intensification of things like fire seasons. There's more costly damage from tropical storms. And I think also we're becoming more aware of how these events are connected to each other, connected to climate change. And so I think there's also just a greater interest in the public. There's more, I hope, more coverage and more awareness of how these changes are happening. But certainly, you're right that you're seeing a trend that is borne out by lots of different kinds of data records. So it's not just temperature anymore. We're looking at fire records. We're looking at snowpack records. We're seeing these changes really across the Earth system. And that's one of the reasons why we're so concerned about this.
Oh, certainly a lot of concern. What are the chief things that maybe keep you up at night? It's causing a lot of us to lose some sleep now and then.
Right now, gosh, there's so many things, but I will say one of the things I worry about is water in the Western United States. My brother lives in Nevada, and one of the things that really hit home for me is he was telling me that he and his wife don't like to leave my nephew alone at home, not because he's not old enough or not responsible enough, but because they're concerned if there was a fire in their area, how would he deal with that as a middle school child? And, when I hear things like that, the way that fires are affecting people's daily lives, even within my own family, that's really devastating to think that every time my brother leaves the house, he's got in the back of his mind, what could that mean for my family? What kind of devastating event could be there? So even though he's been lucky to avoid some of the most devastating consequences, it's having a really dramatic effect right now, all across the Western states. And, that is one of the things that, I think a lot about, and that we're working very hard to try to help.
Where is the best place for people to go to get more information, good information about all of this? Because there's so much out there that can be good or not good.
Yeah, we always encourage, there's so much great information coming from NASA, and we encourage everybody to learn more. There's a lot of great information on our website, so you can check us out on the web at nasa.gov/Earth or on social media at NASA Earth. You'll find lots of great resources there.
Lesley Ott, thank you so much for taking the time with us.
Thank you for having me.